pretty laid back here today, but Andrew will give the overview of his business and his background, and then we'll spend 22 minutes in questions and dialogue. So with that, it is a 1 million cups tradition to give a standing ovation to welcome our guests. So everybody please stand and welcome Andrew Jones, the Activated Research Company.
Wow, I did not expect that.
Oh, by the way, Titans of Tech here present with us today in the Sun Country, or the Sun Current newspaper. So Andrew has won a number of awards, and I wanted to give that to you too, so you have that to take away. So
great. Well, thank you, and thank you for the warm welcome. Patrick roped me into this. I met him at Clean Tech Open. And I'm happy to be here to kick off the inaugural Eden Prairie 1 million cups, which is right in my backyard. And it's also my inaugural 1 million cups meeting. So this is going to be a fun ride. So be gentle. It sounds like it's 6 minutes and we hold questions till the end.
I have a broom, so if you go over.
Okay, yeah, just whack me on the head. So my name is Andrew Jones. I'm with Activated Research Company. We're out here in Eden Prairie, Minnesota off of Mitchell Drive. And we have invented a scientific device that helps scientists analyze the chemicals that are in stuff. And I'll get to what that means in a little bit. So let me get a show of hands. How many of you have children or grandchildren? Almost everyone. So this is my son, Owen. And as all of you know, these kids, he's 16 months old, get into everything. And as a chemist, I know that all these things he touches on a daily basis, they expose him to different levels and amounts of different chemicals, some harmful, some not. And it's the job of us scientists to determine what's safe, what quantities are in there, and what is he going to be exposed to on a regular basis. Now, the challenge is the complexity of all of this analysis. So it may be formaldehyde coming off of your carpets, it may be toluene in your paints. There are tens of thousands of scientists around the world working to determine what's in these mixtures, but they need help. So the problem with chemical analysis is complexity. If my son Owen wants to analyze what's in this paint, looking at toluene or another chemical, he would need to buy one of these, which is a gas chromatograph. It's about $40,000 to $60,000. He would then need to purchase calibration standards for that toluene in 5 different concentration increments, inject them in this instrument, make a calibration curve, analyze the results, and then repeat this 10 to 100 times per paint sample just to get the complete makeup for all of those chemicals that are in that paint. That's extremely time-consuming, expensive, and requires highly trained technical personnel. Owen couldn't do this. He's only 16 months old. We'll give him time. With our solution that we've invented, we reduce all molecules to methane so that detection is simplified. And by doing this, our customers see a reduction in analysis time by up to 98%. They see a reduction in the cost of analysis by up to 80%. And they see a reduction in man-hours by up to 86%. This is a drastic change, step change in chemical analysis. We have over 100 customers that have validated this value proposition. So what is this magical device that can do all of this? Well, it's what we call the polyarc reactor cartridge. It's this small reactor. This is blown up. It's only about 2 inches by 1 inch, and it's stainless steel. And what it does is your chemicals come in, and using our patent-pending catalysts, my background is chemical engineering, catalysis, we do chemical reactions to transform all compounds into methane so you can detect them with the same sensitivity. We also use 3D printed reactor design. So this is the world's first and only 3D printed microreactor. It's pretty cool stuff. This is stainless steel, and layer by layer, we 3D print these to get very accurate control of the internal geometries. So really state-of-the-art manufacturing married with state-of-the-art catalysis. And our customers love it. So we're only about 3 years old, but we've made great progress in a number of different academic, industrial, as well as government laboratories. So anything from NREL, National Renewable Energy Laboratory, to 3M in our backyard, or the University of Minnesota. So this market for chemical analysis is dominated by chromatography, which is actually the science of separating compounds so you can analyze them one by one. Sorry to get technical. But this market is over $7 billion per year, and it's growing at about a 7% CAGR. So in order to tackle such a large market, we've come up with a very focused approach so we don't spread ourselves too thin. We've started with transformer oil gas analysis. So those big transformers, those big boxes you see out in those fields that are stepping voltage down from 100,000 volts down to 10,000 volts or 2,000 volts. Those require these oils, and those oils break down. And over time, they become dangerous. They can explode if there's too much acetylene that builds up. They can also become fouled and reduce their properties of insulation and whatnot. And so they need to analyze those transformer oils regularly. And so our device can help them do that more accurately. Moving from that, we are getting into paints and coatings, where we're developing regulated methods, ASTM methods, to incorporate our technology to analyze paints and coatings more efficiently and with less cost. And then finally moving into flavor and fragrance. So the way they analyze a fragrance today, you take a cosmetic off the shelf and you want to analyze if it's the same as the one before it, or if you want to analyze it so you can copycat it and make a generic at Target, for example. You would actually inject it into that GC and you'd get a bunch of peaks. And right now there's too many compounds for them to calibrate accurately. So they guess what the quantity is based on that signal, and then they'll make a copycat recipe, they'll smell it, and they'll bring in a fancy nose, a guy that gets paid a lot to smell things, and he'll come in and say, oh, you need more D-limonene, you need less linalool, and he'll try to tune it with his nose and get it just about right, but it's never right, because this thing that you started with was incorrect. So with our technology, they can get an accurate measure right off the bat, and unfortunately, that guy's going to lose his job. But there's not many of them, so he'll find other work, I'm sure. And then with that, we can move into other industries where chemical analysis is important, anywhere from pharmaceuticals to chemicals to biofuels, which is really where this technology was founded, was to determine how to analyze biofuels in a more efficient way. So we speculate that the polyarc is about a $1 billion opportunity. Now, with all that, our competition has changed. There are no other companies that have a product that claim to do what we can do yet. Our competition is changing the minds and the methods of the industry that have been prevalent for about 60 years. And that's not an easy task. A lot of these calibration methods are written into the firmware of our scientists, and education has to be a huge backbone of our company. So we have done this with a three-prong approach. We focused on technical journals, which is where scientists learn about new technologies and trust what is coming out, that it's going to work. Also key influencers. We've worked with a number of professors and industry champions to be vocal about the technology, but we need more. And also awards. We have an award strategy, really, to gain credibility and visibility in different markets, anywhere from the Techni Award here to R&D 100 and the Gulf Coast Conference, which you probably haven't heard of, but that's a big oil industry conference. And so we've done very well with these things, but we need help. And so part of my ask to the community here will be to help us find those key influencers, those customers that can try out a new technology and are willing to open their minds to something that's different than what they've been doing for 60 years. So it's true crossing the chasm sort of change. So the story of Activated Research Company actually begins about 8 years ago when I met Brad Cleveland at the University of Minnesota. He was my mentor. And so we hit it off through what was then the Carlson Mentorship Program. I was actually a student of the Institute of Technology at the time. And we talked about starting a company, but he was the CEO of Proto Labs at the time, which all of you have heard of. And so the timing wasn't quite right. I went off to grad school, got my PhD in chemical engineering at Berkeley. He stayed and took Proto Labs public in what was Minnesota's most successful IPO of Proto Labs. It was about a $2 billion valuation. So after that, we both came, I came back to Minnesota, he was done with that, and we decided it was time to start a company. So we co-founded Activated Research Company together in July of 2014. Brad unfortunately passed away last year due to health complications. He had had brain tumors for a long time, but he left the company with an amazing foundation for success and taught me everything I know about being a CEO and a leader in a small company. So today there's 6 of us with a range of experience and a number of advisors with MBAs, PhDs, and raw talent to boot. So from sales to R&D, we're continuing to innovate and make new products and bring them to the scientific community with a foundation of catalysis, chemical engineering, and chemical analysis. We're also right here in your guys' backyard. So with that, I think I was right on time with 6 minutes, so I'll open it up for questions, and thank you guys for your attention.
So the first question we always have to get it kicked off, and you alluded to it a little bit, but if you could please expand upon it, is what can our community do for you?
Yeah, good. Well, luckily I had a chance to plan for this. Patrick told me this was coming. So yeah, there's really 2 things. As a startup, we're in that growth curve, but we need more key influencers. We need more scientists working on this project. So anyone you guys know in your networks that are scientists or working on analysis, I would love to talk to them and get them to try a new product. Also, because we're growing so fast, we're continually hiring people, so we're hiring two more people in the next quarter, and I envision that we'll probably need an integrator in the next year. So I would like to start those relationships now and start to get to know people, especially for that integrator role, now so that we could hire them at the sort of end of 2018 timeframe. So if you know of anyone or if you are a self-prescribed integrator, I would love to talk to you. Yep.
Can you expand a little bit on what's the criteria of that specific scientist person that you're looking for? Is it somebody that works at a college like the U of M? Is it somebody that sits in their garage with a microscope? I mean...
Yep, so it could be a scientist at Cargill who analyzes food. It could be a scientist at 3M who analyzes plastics, perfluorocarbons. It could be a scientist at a fragrance company or a generics company, that sort of thing.
Do you do environmental testing with this technology?
Yeah, so one of the barriers that we come up against is regulated methods. And so environmental testing is highly regulated by the EPA, and a lot of those methods haven't changed for 40 years, and they tell you exactly what technology you can use and what you can't. And so we are sort of barred from those until those methods change. There are we're doing some work in that area, but it's not it's very specific niche areas that haven't been highly regulated. Yep. Yeah. So if you know anyone at the EPA that can influence change, we'd like that too.
Start tweeting.
Yeah, we start tweeting.
Tweeting and then get to the right.
It's been effective, yeah.
I'm just curious, it seems like, from the application standpoint, you've got a broad spectrum. What got you started with the oil space versus paint or, some other form? I'm just kind of curious how you decided on your target.
Well, in hindsight, I could have been better at getting that focus early on. And to be honest, we kind of floundered for a little while trying to figure out where was our niche. We had this technology that we knew worked, but where did it fit? And I think, we may have underestimated how long that might take. So the way that it happened was, my background's really kind of in oil, catalysis, and whatnot, so I understood that a lot. We kind of went there first. that ended up not being the best market to start with, not the transformer oils, but oil and gas industry. And as we kind of brought the technology to different areas, we started learning where people had really big pain points and where this technology really helped people. And so that's how we came up with that trajectory. And that's pretty new, only in the last year that we really figured that out. Yeah. But yeah, it took time, and you'd wish that you could do customer discovery before you invent the technology and figure it all out before you do that. But unfortunately, it doesn't always work that way.
How did you find those pain points? The reason why I ask is part of what you're asking us to do is provide influencers or people knowledge. One way we can find out is to talk to people that are in those industries and find out if this is a pain point for them.
Yep. Yeah. Going to a lot of trade shows, talking to a lot of people. The reality is calibration is a pain point for everyone. Everyone has to calibrate because the machine has a different sensitivity to every compound. And so you have to calibrate those differences out. The issue is some people have hundreds of compounds they have to calibrate for, and it's a real pain point. Some people only have 5, and they just kind of deal with it. And so finding those people where it's a real big issue, or it's impossible to buy standards like the fragrance companies, or they break down. So it gets a little bit technical, but everyone has that pain point. It's just to varying degrees. Yeah.
Outside of the actual product itself, can you tell me what was something that you and the company went through that maybe was a little bit of a challenge, but that when you broke through, you just felt that electricity and you just pumped your fist in the sky, that kind of was?
Yeah. There were a number of challenges.
Pick your favorite.
My favorite challenge. So the first time we ever had a big order, right? Multiple units and over $50,000. I flew out to do that install, and there were a number of challenges getting there because the flights were canceled and whatnot. But we ended up getting there, and it was a chemical plant that had shut down just for us to put these things on. So it was a big deal. We had to be there. And the challenge was getting the device installed in all of these units in 2 days and not breaking anything. We ended up breaking a column, and it was a mess. But we got it all together, taped it together, strapped it up, and it ended up working. And it was a huge, huge success. So that was pretty early on. Yeah, that was scary. Yep.
I'm going to defer to Tyler over there. He's had his hand up. Oh, go ahead. I'll go after Tyler.
Just wondered about trying to get your foot in the door with the quality control aspect, not necessarily the end testing. So let their big machines focus on the end result testing that meets all the criteria, like for EPA.
Yep.
But if you get in the door as quality control, then it kind of proves the technology works.
Yep. Yeah, and that varies from industry to industry, but yeah, there's definitely places where internally there's not regulated, but then externally, anytime it goes to a customer, it needs to be a regulated method. Yep.
Have you talked to the people out at Evans Analytical and Physical Electronics?
Haven't talked to Evans, I don't believe. Are they here?
Yeah.
Yeah. No. But are they more
Surface analytics.
CE rating and things like that?
Sims and some of that kind of techniques.
Okay.
I think they've got GC internally, but also just on board.
Yeah, they might.
It's a little bit different because you had indicated that the analytical labs maybe were later on in your strategy, but I would think that the analytical labs are the ones that are struggling with having all the calibration standards because they're working with a huge variety of materials.
Yep. Yep. We are working with some analytical labs. The problem is they need the pull-through demand, so they need customers asking them to run a certain method. So usually customers will come to them and say, hey, can you analyze this with ASTM D6886? And they just have to do that. They do some exploratory type work where they have more ability to choose their technologies, but that's less. That might be one GC in their lab.
But these guys are the backyard.
Yeah, if you know people there, that'd be great. Thank you. Yeah.
Who exactly are your customers that are going to spend money with you, and why do they need to do this?
Yep.
Chemical analysis. Why does it have to be done? Is it because something's changing over time, and now we need to know what's left, or they don't know what they put in their own products?
Yeah, so there's two parts to your question. So who is the customer? So there's the lab technicians who are actually running the samples, or handling the samples, injecting them in the GC, and then there's the lab managers who are managing that, making the purchase decisions for the lab, and then there might be sort of above that VP levels who make the bigger purchasing decisions for the labs when it gets into the 100,000.
Providing the service to companies that need to have this work done, they're your customers, or the companies themselves have their own internal departments?
Yep, so if you look at all the big chemical companies, whether it's Dow, BASF, or a number of other ones, they all have their own internal analytical services. They'll have their own R&D core analytical services to do a range of things, but then they'll also have analytical at each chemical plant. So this gets to your next question, which is why are they analyzing? One may be because there's an unknown showing up or messing up their process and they don't know what it is and they send it back to R&D analytical. The other may be that they're just running, and it's a QC type application where they're making sure that nothing's fluctuating in the process in the plant, whether they're making chemicals or foods or oils or fragrances or plastics or anything. They need to check that they're getting the same thing out every time and that there's no fluctuations in the chemical composition and that they're safe for my son, those types of things. And then in the environmental space, they're doing the same thing with air, where they're checking that the air quality is, good and that our water quality is good. And yep. So there's a range of reasons why we need to analyze chemicals. I mean, chemicals are in everything, and we just have to figure out what's in there. Is it safe, and is it the same every time? So we're getting consistency. Yep. So I think there was one up here and then one back there. Okay. Yep.
So can you talk a little bit more about the transformer oil market? I just don't know what this. So what's the application? How do they use yours? And can you give an example of companies, maybe locally or nationally, that would use your product?
Yep. So this is another instance where companies like Excel Energy will have their own analytical team to analyze transformers, but they will also sometimes contract out those services to bigger companies like Doble, Weidman, TJH2B. You probably have never heard of them. I hadn't before either. But they do contract oil gas testing. And so what they do is they have these big transformers, the big ones and the small ones, they're all filled with an oil. It used to be PCB oil, which is really dangerous. They switched to mineral oil, and now they're switching to vegetable oils, which are renewable and actually have some favorable properties. Now the issue is it's become very difficult to analyze these vegetable oils because there's things in them that actually poison the instruments. And our device helps them to not get poisoned because it just converts everything to methane. And so what they'll do is they'll go out into the field. It could be a wind farm. Those have transformers as well. They take an oil sample out of those transformers by hand with the syringe, and they bring them back to a lab, inject them into these machines, and they figure out what the levels of gases are. There's basically 5 that they look at: carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, methane, ethane, ethylene, and one more, acetylene. And they can look at those gases and how they change over time and determine whether that transformer is going to fail, whether it needs more oil, whether it's going to explode. Essential things for knowing the lifetime of that transformer. And so they have to do that regularly. So that was kind of a long-winded answer. Did that answer your question?
So basically it sounds like the power distribution industry is a big customer for you, right?
Yep. So finding the right people in there, and then of course that can go global, and that can be a big market. Yep.
Is your device attached to the equipment, or is it just a more portable?
Yep. So it's an add-on product. So that reactor that you saw will sit on top of the GC that I showed at the beginning. Yep.
You had kind of mentioned that it was a cartridge. How frequently does that have to be changed out?
Yep.
I mean, how often can you ship these to your clients?
Yeah, so we say about every 6 months they'll need to change this out, and we actually will recycle what comes back, and we'll do kind of a core exchange. So it's that catalyst that needs to be changed out, and so we'll get them back, refill them, clean them, send them back out every 6 months. Yep. Yeah, yep.
What's your biggest barrier to obtaining these customers?
Yeah, it's that they've been doing the same thing for 60 years, and we're a nobody, and we're telling them there's a reason to change. And so it's building that momentum up that, oh, everyone's doing this, so you're going to be left behind if you don't. And eventually that will switch, right? Eventually that will happen, and people will be coming to us more for that.
Do you see more of a problem where, I know you said your biggest competition is change.
Yeah.
Is it change in terms of letting them know that this giant process they're used to doing can now be done, at a fraction of the time and effort, or is it a problem of change in terms of what their process is in terms of walking into the door, knowing exactly what each instrument they have, what it does, and going from point A to point B.
It's a
Does that make sense?
Yeah. There's a barrier. There's an energy barrier to getting them to change their methods, rewrite methods, and these people are very busy. They're overworked, and they're just trying to analyze samples and get them out the door, and there's an upfront cost to actually, they'd have to put all that on pause to then put these in and rewrite methods, and there's risk involved. And so you have to really illustrate the value that they're going to get to put that investment in of time. And so it's that resistance, because they've been doing it for 60 years with these calibrations, and it works for most people. And so, yeah.
Have you thought about not just providing them with a better solution that's more cost effective and obviously saves them time so that they could stop being overworked?
Yep.
But have you thought about also supplying what, kind of like an instruction book, right? Mm-hmm. So this is how you used to do it. This is how you will do it. And I don't know, maybe it looks so much simpler that it just becomes a really hard no.
Yeah, so what you're kind of getting at is providing more of a solution than just a product and coming in. And so, yeah, we do that with some people, and that's definitely a strategy as well, to go in there and just do it all for them so that it's ready to go. And we have installation services and things like that. So, yeah, it does help for some people.
Yeah, everyone's different.
So once you're successful at breaking through that barrier you just mentioned, the next question that comes up is you said your competition's changed, so when you get through that, what's the barrier to someone recreating what you're doing? You've got a secret sauce in your patent pending, the substrate you said?
Right.
Is that the secret sauce? Is that your barrier to...
Yeah, so we have a number of patents on the device and the design of the device and the catalysts that we use. But people will, of course, try to copy us. I'm not naive in that. So there's a barrier with the patents and the IP, and our strategy, and this comes a lot from Brad Cleveland, was patent as best you can and then run like hell, and just try to sell as much as you can, dominate as much as you can, and keep evolving.
The front runner advantage, yeah.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. And we continually are innovating. We have a new version of this coming out in 2018. We have another product that we just released, actually, called a Jetinizer, which is, I won't get into it, but a smaller catalytic reactor. So, yeah, to stay ahead of the game.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think with renewable tech, like you talk about wind farms and stuff, but some way that you can install these things, bring a technology to these devices so that they companies that sell like transformers or sell wind, whatever the things, the generators and the wind fields, that they can have like sort of smart tech, with it, so they know like everything about the status of it's going to fail, so that no one needs to go out there and like take a syringe back to a lab. Then it's just all like cloud-based stuff, especially as that market grows. I think that's a huge opportunity. I'm sure you're thinking about.
Yeah, no, you're hired. Yeah, no, that's no, that's definitely a long-term trajectory, is put a platform technology on the transformer itself. And there are some technologies that do that, but they have a high rate of failure, and they give poor data back and a lot of false negatives. So, yeah, or false positives.
2 more questions.
Yeah. I think we had one here.
Yeah, I've just got, you had talked about going out to set this up with companies, and then you've talked about replacing them every 6 months. When you set this up, does it become a plug and play kind of thing? And it's a matter of unsnap the new old one and snap the new one in?
It's sort of that easy, yeah. Yep, you're cooling it down. There's 4 fittings that you have to make, and then you pull it out and put a new one in. Okay. So the replacements are pretty easy to, all the customers do it themselves.
And then the only other question I have is, what happens if this suddenly like explodes? How does the production change? And are you guys prepared for that?
Yeah, we'd call that a good problem to have. And yes, it depends on your definition of explode, but we are prepared for significant scale, and we'd be able to scale up pretty quickly, even beyond that. So, yeah, it's pretty scalable.
One more question?
One over here.
Yes, my question. It was a question on durability.
Yeah.
I was just curious on pricing, how that works, because it sounds like you've got the product component where you sell the product, and then you got kind of like long-term servicing, right? Because it's only got 6 months. I'm assuming, do they buy it every 6 months then? Or is it like a plan, like a
subscription plan?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we have both options. So they can opt to purchase it whenever they want, or for a reduced fee, they can have a subscription plan where we just automatically send them one at 6 months and bill them. And
so if they pay $60,000 for one of these GC units, yours is how big of a percentage of that cost?
Yeah. So our device, if you already have a GC, it's $5,000 to $10,000, and then subscription, you're paying on the order of $1,000 every 6 to 12 months. Yep. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Andrew. Let's hear
Great.
from you.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
What?